Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall. And we're back again with another weird topic, another weird little slice of life.
Yeah.
We're slowly taking down this world of weird pie, one little cut at a time. Originally you thought maybe, hey, it'll be like 100 slice pie, and now we're at like over 340. And sometimes you just think about that, and it kind of terrifies you that there's almost like 500 hours of your like random bullshit ramblings
Online,
recorded on the internet.
I had one of those thoughts today as well. What I was really thinking about was like, I'll just like be kind of thinking about what I researched recently, and then I'll think about recent episodes, and my mind will follow down that path. And eventually it'll land on something along the lines of, man, I forgot how Congress worked in one episode because I was so tired. And that's just online forever. People just know that there was a day where like my brain could not even like comprehend the idea of the United States Congress. So that's fun.
People that listen to a lot of the show will be fully aware of how I don't think either one of us could pass a high school social studies class at this point in time. Yep. Did you say a Bechdel test? I mean, I guess this podcast doesn't normally doesn't normally pass that. Does the Bechdel test apply to podcasts?
It can and it will. In this
episode, a lot of late night fucking talk shows don't even pass it. So honestly, I think we really need to work on that as a society. And see where we can go from there.
Speaking of late night talk shows, a lot of weird stuff going on in the news lately. You seen this? You heard about this?
You heard about this? Yeah. It seems like we're having a real rush of like trains capsizing, which is just like a terrible thing.
That is really terrible. And I was thinking more about the aliens thing.
Sorry. The thing that actually has ties to our podcast, other than, I saw a TikTok earlier. There was conspiracies about the railway system.
God. Okay.
So, but the more directly tied thing is the fact that we are now just hopefully using actual orgone blasters to bust down all of those UFOs flying over the continental U.S.
Yeah, they're supplying all of the United States soldiers with their own personal orgone blaster. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it is what's the shit that they put in the orgone blasters?
I mean, it's usually like metal fillings and resin and crystals, if I remember correctly.
We're really running low on crystal supplies out there. So, if you see crystal prices go up at your local, New Age store or whatever, that's going to be why they're using them.
Those like blind box things that are like sand packed around something that's in the middle of it that people take the little trowel and dig out. The price of those things are going up big time.
Really fucked right now if you try looking at those.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say like a lot of TikTok and YouTube content generation is really going through the ropes right now. The cost of producing those videos where you have someone like excavating a stone with like someone playing a video game on the side and like ASMR stuff next to it. That stuff's really, the cost of that shit's going through the roof.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I had if you can see that now, I had an alien implant removed from my arm. So they can no longer track me.
Did they take out the 5G while you were there? Take that out as well?
Yeah, I had them remove the 5G implant, and you can't really see it very well, but they did drill into my skull up here to get rid of my pineal gland because I was burdened
Oh, they
by
just
all
took
the
it out.
psychic, yeah, all the incoming sort of psychic data and people's thoughts and things that were sort of coming in. I'm just kidding. This was a cyst.
Oh, okay.
But
Well, I'm glad you got that taken care of.
yeah, thank you. It was painful, but we're done. God, what the hell? I just
So you have a bandage on your arm
Yeah.
that you were showing me. So I just realized I don't think we ever actually said what was happening on screen, and
Oh,
no
yeah,
one
that's true.
else can see.
Yeah, I have a
So
big bandage, and under that bandage, there's a big hole in my arm, which was novel for me because, like, I've never seen into my arm, but now I kind of know what some of it looks like, which is interesting.
oh, you got to find what the inside looks like.
Yeah, like my stitches are like they were pretty fresh the other day, and I kind of took a look in there and kind of felt around and was like, oh, that's a lot of blood, but now I know what's going on in there.
Yeah.
Niall, this week, all the news coming in about UFOs and stuff. And frankly, I think that inevitably we will have to address that in depth and like maybe just have an episode where we can talk about what the fuck is going on and gather some of the news that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, a current events episode would be a new thing for It Gets Weird, but we could definitely give that a crack.
Well,
now that the current events aren't Q based, I guess we can we can maybe talk about them.
Well, the problem with doing current events is like it never feels like there's enough in like one particular week. It's like we'd have to like do a month's worth of like and it's hard to do, I think. But right now it's so fucking crazy the last couple weeks regarding UFO stuff, and I'm gonna save it for when we actually do something like that because I'd be down if you're down. But it got me thinking.
If you can
like,
crack it, go for it.
I think I could. I think I could. Now it did get me thinking. Well, if what we're being visited, if you haven't seen the news, there's been a lot of UFO sightings. Supposedly UFOs getting shot down by various militaries. It's a whole thing. But it got me thinking. Like, well, people aren't really like theorizing about what kinds of aliens are visiting us.
No,
right?
Well, it's not in this current.
I haven't seen it much.
Climate.
Yeah, not so much. It's not so much the focus. And it got me thinking. Well, maybe it would be a good time for me to really dig into some weird alien contact stories. Like Greys are fine, Nordics are technically racist, reptilians are. I was gonna say fine, but also technically anti-Semitic. Anyways,
yeah. There's a lot of dog whistles when it comes to aliens.
We could talk about all the classic UFO stuff, but I want to take that stuff. I want to take those classic UFOs. I want to take a gray. I want to put them in a bag. I want to put all the classic aliens that everybody talks about, the like big 3 or 4, put them in a bindle and send them packing. Walk down the road, just keep on going. Don't even look back. Don't give me that wistful look back over your shoulder. I want you to get the fuck out of here because I want to talk about some fucking weird alien stories today.
So not even the Meet Joe Black look back where
illegal.
They look back and then get hit by a car.
Well, if it's a reptilian or a Nordic, like a tall white, then maybe they can get hit by a car. I'm, jury's still out on the Greys for me. I'm sure there's a
tall white like Larry Bird.
No, that's what they're called, right? They're called the Nordic white.
You're not wrong. I just thought it was a good time to make a
Aryan,
little joke.
Yeah. So Larry Bird and a bindle full of aliens are hitting the road, getting hit by a car. And we're going to talk about some fucked up stuff that just do not really fit into the typical canon. That's what
a little bit of a little grab bag. We're gonna reach into the hollow tooth thing at the dentist office and see what we can find in that bag. I reference that far too much for a thing that is probably not that common of an occurrence.
Yeah, we're gonna play the alien gachapon is what we're gonna do.
Yeah,
Okay. There's the thing with the playing the alien gachapon when you're looking at these like more unique cases. First of all, they're usually pre-internet era. One.
Yes.
I do not feel like people have these fucking weird ass encounters in the modern age, in the contemporary age. Probably because everybody has a the camera now, and they can. I don't need to explain that to you. But I just got thinking like that. There's some really fucking weird stuff out there, but they're always these shorter stories. So I
Yeah.
have 3 stories for you.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So, which you've done this before too. I feel like the last time we did this, you talked about the Italian-looking pancake aliens, which is
Yeah.
an all-timer in my opinion.
One of my all-time favorite encounters with one of my all-time favorite UFO stories, of course.
It's so
along
good.
with like the Sandown Clown, just
Yes.
any of these like truly strange encounters. I love them.
Yeah.
There aren't enough of them out there, so I'm excited
agree.
to hear some more.
And the thing is, I think eventually we'll run out of them. That's the thing that sucks about this is like we can talk about this stuff, but there aren't any new ones coming out. I don't think there's going to be new ones unless it turns out this wave of UFOs hammering the world right now are actually aliens. I doubt it, but that would, maybe we'll get to meet some fucking aliens in our lifetime. So, Niall, our first story, I just wanted to go and say that I got this from, so it was originally in a report by MUFON Connecticut, Mutual UFO Network, and it was reported on the July 15th, 1959 issue of the now defunct Civilian Saucer Intelligence of New York newsletter.
Okay.
And this is the story of the old Saybrook blockheads. So
that sounds like a very, very local like hockey team. like not minor league, but like community league. They meet at the old like rec center, and they only have like 3 teams in the league because there's like a lot of the mine schedules don't line up.
Yeah, and the goalie's pissed because the skates that he has on are like maybe half a size too small because that's all they had, and they all wear fucking square helmets for some reason because that's their little quirky thing that they do. No, Niall, this is an alien. Let's get serious, okay?
Fantastic. Okay.
So this is a weird one. This is the story of Mrs. Mary M. Starr, who was living in Old Saybrook in Connecticut. And notably, she had 2 degrees from Yale, which I looked it up, and she has some sort of thing on Yale's website in the archives. It's like, oh, she was like a close friend with like some sort of Greek royalty.
Please finish that sentence. Okay.
Or something like it was something weird. But like I just
the
like
pregnant silence there was really I was really worried there for a second.
Yeah, you
Kyle's
didn't know if I was
gonna
going to
get real
say
weird about Greek people.
Yeah, you didn't know if I was going to say yogurt or something. So she would spend 2 or 3 of the months during winter in a cottage, which it's apparently a pretty nice spot, and it's basically at the beginning and the end of this season. She is the only building that is occupied. Okay. Nobody nearby is sticking around during the winter months, I guess, at this point. And even the nearest other houses are a pretty good distance away from her. So notably, she is alone out here.
Did you ever do that during like college or anything where you stayed up during the summer in the dorms or anything?
Yeah, a little bit.
Where
I
like
did, yeah.
The campus was just bare. I did that. I did summer school one year, and being in a place that is normally filled with people where just nobody is around is one of the weirdest fucking experiences. So, hey, primed for a good way to get started with a UFO story here.
Yeah,
so.
well, and for me, I know that I did that at least once where basically everybody had gone home for summer or something, and I personally loved it because I had so much anxiety walking around other students when I was at college. It was a huge problem. That was like the peak of my anxiety attacks. So it was honestly a blessing for me. And this, what I'm reading here, sounds kind of cozy, except for the one little tidbit with the aliens.
Yeah, except for her encounter with the blockheads. All right.
Yeah. So on the night of December, it's listed as December 15th to 16th, but I'm assuming they mean the 16th because 1957, she's woken up around 2 or 3 a.m. And she's woken up by these bright lights that are going by her bedroom window. And it's so bright it wakes her up. So she looks out and she sees out her window something that is some sort of machine, approximately 20 to 30 feet long, that is 10 feet from the house and just hanging around out there. She describes it as being dark gray or maybe black, but it had these very well lit square portholes, and this is a cigar shaped craft.
Okay.
I guess immediately she thinks that this was maybe a troop carrier that was off course and was going to crash. But as it kind of came in, it just stopped and did the thing that UFOs do, which is just hover. So this thing's hovering about 5 feet over the ground. It didn't have any wings, nothing external to it. Picture your classic like cigar shaped UFO craft.
Yeah. Okay. And with like, I feel like like rectangular portholes is weird for craft. Like a lot of times, it's a lot of circular shit.
Well, and what's kind of weird about this one is let me bring up the picture, because like it's described as cigar shaped, but like not cigar shaped as in it's rectangular. Like it's more oval and like tapered off at the edges. You know what I'm saying? Like almost football like, but flatter.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what she's working with here. And so she sees that it has these like portholes, these windows, and she's looking at it from her window, watching this thing float there, and she sees that there were these two forms that were passing each other that seemed to be walking in those portholes. And they were walking past each other in opposite directions. And for some reason, both of them had their arms upraised. I guess specifically, it's like, honestly, when I hear this description, it almost sounds like they're giving like the Nazi salute. But they're like, they have one arm upraised, and she couldn't make out any hands on these arms. They appeared to be wearing some sort of jacket. And she
with a red patch on the arm.
No,
it was upraised. No,
not exactly. Not exactly. They like have this like triangular looking body that sort of all like tapers off towards the bottom. She never saw.
So like they got the Dorito chip body.
Yeah, yes,
like Chris Evans.
Yeah. Yes, this is a very Chris Evans sort of entity in the craft doing the Nazi salute.
So just imagine all of this as Chris Evans.
Yeah, so picture Chris Evans. God, yeah, that could not be. The thing is, that could not be further from the truth, because it's such a bizarre. I have her drawing, but there's a lot of interpretations of this creature, or thing, or whatever the fuck it was. Instead of having what you would picture as a head, they had a like square, reddish orange, just like block where their head was. And at the center of that block, there was this bright red sort of bulb. Okay. And Mary kind of, she I guess suggests that it's possible that the square thing where the head should be is maybe a helmet, but she doesn't know. And she like leans forward to see if she can get a closer look at these things. And as she does so, a third entity enters from the left side. And as she did so, and as this thing enters, the portholes just faded, and the entire craft began to glow very brightly, mostly from the top. And she said that as it began to glow, suddenly there was this, towards the end facing her, this like antenna sort of device popped out. She said maybe it was like 6 inches long, and it spun around and sparkled.
Okay.
It's such a, again, not only do we get like a weird alien here, but we get like one of the weirder descriptions of a UFO being a UFO.
Yeah. That is really strange. And I was having trouble fully grokking what the description was. So I just did a quick Goog, and turns out this thing does have one of those what the card game that Garrett bought that box
Yeah,
of.
yeah, crypto. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
know what
has
you're
one of
talking
those
about.
cards. And it literally, if you just like chopped off Oogie Boogie's head and put a glass display case on top in a square, that's with like just
Yeah.
like with like a fucking dodgeball inside of it, you got the thing.
Yeah, I have heard sketches of the creature, which is what people are basing it off of. Like, because in a lot of the
Yeah.
interpretations, it's almost got like a gooey body and an oozy sort of body, but she doesn't really give that level of detail.
Okay, this was where was this again?
This was
In
in
Greece?
Old Saybrook in Connecticut.
Why did I think we were in? Oh, we were talking
Because
about
I was
Europe or
talking
something else.
about it's
I
a
was
whole
like,
different thing.
in my whole head, I was trying to make this whole thing about how the head is a San Marzano tomato, and you got a nice like gooey pizza dough body kind of thing. Because I thought we were in fucking, but I guess not. We're in Connecticut. Actually, I
No.
guess Connecticut does have
Greek's
New
Pizzeria.
Haven Pizza.
Oh.
New Haven Pizza is like a famous thing.
Oh,
They got that
well.
like cold cheese pizza there.
Ooh, a what?
So they take a slice, and then as they're gonna serve it, they take a handful of like shredded, just cold cheese from the thing and put it on top of there, on top of a hot slice. So then you can eat the hot slice with the cold cheese
Okay.
on top, and it doesn't burn your mouth.
But you still have a hot slice, yes?
Yeah, but the cheese on top of it is cold, so it makes it so it's eatable.
Does it? Because
Supposedly.
I would imagine that if it's hot enough, you're still going to have a hot pizza moment.
I mean,
Despite there
look,
being a barrier of cold cheese in between you, you're still gonna burn yourself if it's too hot.
oh, it's definitely possible, but that is the story. Hey, that was what the pizza YouTube series that I
Okay.
watched all of over like a 2-month span 4 years ago said.
Okay.
So
Okay. Oh, I'd be down to try it, and I imagine that maybe
Yeah.
the pizza melts the cheese a little bit. But so this thing has like a Doritos cheese body.
Yeah.
But yeah, she doesn't really give those details, right? Like she just is like kind of describing the shape of them.
Mhm.
And yeah, she never sees their feet. So this thing sprouts an antenna.
So no wiki feed.
No
entry
wiki
is what
feed
you're
for
telling
these.
me.
Yeah, no wiki feed entry.
Okay.
And this thing fucking sprouts its antenna that spins and sparkles, and she just kind of watches it do this for about 5 minutes, and then the antenna lowers back into the craft, and it begins to move, and she basically watched it. I'm gonna quote what the article says here because it's a little hard for me to describe. Quote, Mrs. Starr expected it to circle the tool shed to get away, but it seemed to be a double ender and moved to the right, back in the direction from which it had come. It made a very sharp right angle turn. Mrs. Starr thought it would hit her blue spruce, but it did not. They had a good navigator, she says. Now it had turned this dull blue-gray color, and the portholes were replaced with these small circular lights that sort of were outlining the rim of the ship.
Okay.
And now it was even more oval shape. And as it kind of lowered down, it undulated, and it followed this like contour of a depression in the ground beyond her garden.
Okay. So it's just like skimming the ground almost.
Yeah, it's very weird. This whole description is fucking weird. Then it goes over a nearby marsh and tilts very steeply, and then shoots straight up into the night sky like a jet in takeoff, but makes no sound the entire time.
Okay. So, okay, when you were saying it was undulating and everything, does this thing have like shape shifting, or was it just moving?
Well,
and that was
she seems to describe it going from this cigar shape to even more oval in shape. So it
Yeah.
does seem like maybe somehow it can change its shape. Yes, and the portholes
One
also were like fading in and out of reality. So
So it's got like a setting for speed and a setting for
yeah,
like pleasure cruising, you know?
yes, yes,
They hit that like leaf button on your car where it turns into like economic mode or whatever the
yeah,
fuck.
eco mode. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
So that's what she says she saw. She notably doesn't notice anything else inside of the craft. Like, does she see like a steering instrument or chairs or anything? She doesn't see anything else in the craft. Just these weird things. Um, and it had been, she notes at this point like that it had been above her clothesline, which was about 5 feet off the ground. Um, and she's thinking, based off of these measurements, that this craft was pretty small and the occupants could not have been more than 4 feet tall. So
Okay.
these are little guys, short kings, you might say.
Yeah. I as someone who's a very big proponent of the like slime creatures and stuff and like Dragon Warrior, I think that this thing's kind of up my alley. It it's not exactly a slime, but it's got the same general feel as those things
Right.
that I do enjoy.
Yeah.
So
So the other thing that's kind of backing up Mary Starr here, is that she's near the Long Island Sound, and there had been reports that match up with the direction that this UFO had come from. That in the last couple weeks, there had been sightings, including sightings that were reported in a local paper, about a hotel caretaker who had seen 40 oblong reddish objects, brighter than the stars. One of the objects is a little larger than the other objects surrounding it, and they sort of scattered over this wide area of the sky and moved in from north to south, and then disappeared after 5 minutes flying into a cloud bank. So this had happened 3 weeks before what Mary saw, and it's just, I guess, a way of trying to bolster her story. So
so there are just some other people that saw something around the
yeah,
same time.
and it's
Okay.
not like it was in the actual area of like, but it was a nearby area, and it was sort of coming in the direction of where Mary stayed. Now, the other notable thing is there was nobody else in the area to corroborate, like any other house, any other.
Oh, that's real
like-
fucking convenient, Mary.
Yeah.
It's real fucking convenient.
Yeah. So she didn't have anybody to corroborate her story, no other witnesses. And she didn't report the story to NICAP until 1958. And it's the classic stuff of based on her background and yada yada yada, and she seems smart and reasonable.
Yeah.
Of course,
yeah.
she would not lie about this. Of course not. But yeah, so a year later, she tells her story to NICAP. But
Which, like, okay, we've talked about this before about how, like, just because they're a policeman does not mean that you should trust their UFO account more. But at the same time, like, all of this stuff about, she seemed like a nice person and all this, like, there's such, like, a weird, like, profiling aspect to this that I find very, like, just a little uncomfy when it comes
maybe
down
disingenuous.
to. Yeah, like, why? Okay.
Well, we've talked about this a number of times before, but it always seems to crop up in stories that either are people who are claiming to maybe believe the phenomenon that, like, this person literally met little 4 foot tall Doritos bodied helmet men, or it's like it's trying to be a bit sensational and leave the door open for you to have fun with the story, and buy into it a bit, whether or not the person writing the story believes that it happened. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it just is. It's a little bit of a, I don't know. It's a little bit of an attempt at, I guess, like, a bait to get you to buy in, but I never do, because like, what does a person being, like 2-degree haver from Yale have to do with the fact, like, whether or not they would lie about seeing aliens? So,
Yeah, it just none of it has anything to do with each other, and it's all about like trying to make the story more believable and more. You can trust this person because they're not the town drunk, which is just the worst
yeah,
thing. Like it just kind of screams
it's
like
a weird little moral
yeah.
line
There's a
we're
weird
drawing.
puritanical bent to some of this stuff that I don't always
I mean,
love.
how many times has the town drunk reported seeing the most insane UFO shit, and NICAP and MUFON are all just like, I'm sorry. Oh, what do I smell in your breath there? I'm sorry. I don't think I can trust your story anymore, actually.
Yeah,
Because you're clearly the town drunk. Like, yeah, it's really ridiculous. It's very ridiculous. Not that people can't have embellished stories when they're drunk, but it is just such a bizarre, like, moral line that we're drawing. And there's literally nothing worse than these stories being like, well, it's a cop, so we have to believe the story. It's like,
yeah.
this appeal to cop is the most pathetic.
All data proves otherwise.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
It's just it's really lame. So, anyways, who knows what the fuck she saw, if she saw anything at all? Really impossible to say. But I love these weird little alien guys.
I think she saw some little sack of flour little guys hanging out in their cigar shaped UFO, showing off their weird glass case heads. And it just this is delightful.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we have 3 stories. I totally forgot that this is
that was story
what we're
1.
doing.
I got 2 more for you.
I just do you ever I don't know if this ever happens to you, but do you ever like hear where the other person is, since we straight up do not tell each other what we're doing ahead of time? That I don't know if some people don't believe us, but that's true. And sometimes there are times where you're talking about something and I'm like, I see what time we're at. I see how long we've been recording. How are we going to get to the normal threshold? And then this time I was like, if that's
How's
the
he
only
gonna do
story,
it?
like what? Yeah. And then I remembered, oh, look, there's 2 more
I've got
stories. So
more
we're
for
doing
ya.
just fine. And I really don't need to burn any time.
Thank you. It's so true. So, no time to waste, Niall. I'm on to story 2 here. And this was one where I gotta admit I'm like crossing my fingers we haven't already talked about this, because it sounded vaguely familiar.
Okay.
But I didn't see. I go to our website and I search for terms and I didn't pull up anything. So I think we haven't covered this one. So we'll see. And stop me if this sounds familiar. So
We need to come up with a punishment for the first person that accidentally recovers something.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
I don't know what it would be, but that would be a fun little thing.
Oh, God, yeah.
I'll think about it.
If it turns out that this has been covered on the show before, I'm going to need listeners to tell me what punishment I must endure. And please be nice. Please. Please be reasonable. Anyways, it's 1975. It's about somewhere before 7 p.m. And it is the evening of February 23rd. 2 young boys, grade school boys, Kamano Masato and Yamahata Katsuhiro, are hanging out, rollerblading near the Hinode estate in Kamimachi, Kofu City. And they're hanging out, having fun, roller skating, when they see a pair of quote-unquote glittering orange UFOs flying around in the sky above them. And they watch as the larger of the 2 UFOs sort of breaks off and flies towards Mount Atago. And the smaller one then slowly comes to the ground, landing around the vineyard behind this estate that they're at. And the boys, I guess, would later tell people that the objects let out some sort of weird crackling or ticking sound, and that sound gets compared to, probably not by the boys, but probably by people who heard later, that gets compared to a Geiger counter.
Okay.
Now, these 2 boys take their skates off and go running into the vineyard to try and see what the hell this thing is. And as they get close to this orange UFO, they see that it is this sort of domed silver disc object that's about 7 feet tall and 15 feet in diameter approximately. And for some reason, I found that a lot of, I guess I can see where they're coming from, but in multiple places, this encounter is compared to the aerial school alien encounter.
Okay.
Which I guess
which we did an episode on.
Yeah, you did that one, and that was like
Yeah.
that was a while ago, and I guess it's because they're like school children finding a UFO. That's the connection. But check that out if you haven't heard the aerial school encounter. So this is like a classic UFO. It lands on these 3 ball-shaped legs, and the kids describe these quote-unquote strange characters that are sort of embossed into the metal surface of the object. And while they're looking at it, they're kind of walking around looking at this thing. They're suddenly very frightened to see a hatch just open on the side of the craft in classic UFO fashion, and a ladder just automatically extending out of the craft and touching down on the ground. And they watch as this humanoid creature comes off the ship and walks down the ladder.
Okay.
And as they're watching, they also notice that there is a smaller but similar looking humanoid that is just hanging out in the control room inside the craft, just waiting in there. And the kids would go on to report that this creature had long arms. It was about 4 feet tall, and it had this glowing sort of reflective silver uniform that it was wrapped in. Its skin is described as being dark brown and covered in these dense wrinkles. So like they couldn't make out any features of the thing. It's just covered in wrinkles and wearing this silver suit. The only thing that they could really see around the head area were these 2-inch long, these 3 2-inch long metal fangs.
Okay.
The articles also compare this, which I actually did. My mind did immediately go here. It reminds me a lot, almost like if you had taken a helmet off of the Pascagoula alien, which were the like weird tin foil guys with claws.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that, except like imagine if you took a helmet off and it had like just brown skin and wrinkles. They also had these like pointed ears, and it carried an object that the kids describe as looking kind of like a rifle. I wish I had more details on what the fuck that was, but they describe it as maybe being rifle-like. Now, I guess this thing comes down and just starts kind of looking around and walking around and seems to be exploring the area around it and is just ignoring the 2 kids. And then suddenly it turns to the boys and puts one of its like weird hands on Yamahata's shoulder, and it pats him twice on the shoulder and then speaks or something like speaking, in something that the boys would describe as sounding, quote, like a tape recorder running backward.
Okay.
Now,
interesting.
When this thing does this, Yamahata just falls to the ground and is paralyzed. He can't move.
So we got some fucking magic spells going on here.
Yeah.
We got some fucking playing the tape of the Book of the Dead, the Necronomicon going.
Yes, but this is actually pretty similar to a lot of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where aliens can psychically or almost magically paralyze you. The article describes it as maybe suspended animation.
I know that that's a thing with UFOs, but like, come on, give me some case where we just have fucking warlock aliens coming down.
He might have
shit.
cast a spell. He might have cast some sort of fucked up spell. We don't know. But Kawano, his buddy, Yamahata's buddy, is like, at first thinks that he's just collapsed out of fear, but it would come out later that Yamahata was said, no, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. So Kawano then, I guess, kind of grabs Yamahata and tries to get him up to his feet and starts kind of dragging him away from these aliens as fast as he can. And they get back home and they're freaking out and tell their mothers about what just happened. Uh, and I guess their moms then followed them back to the housing estate where this had happened. And they supposedly, the mothers also confirmed seeing an orange light pulsating in the vineyard. And they watched this happen for about 5 minutes. They don't get closer to it though. And before they decide on whether or not they're going to get nearer to the object, this thing launches off with a burst of light, and the mothers and the two boys have to avert their eyes. It's so bright.
Okay.
Now, these two are the only ones who had seen this and the aliens, but they would later bring their story back to school. And another one of their schoolmates, an 8-year-old named Ichiro Minagishi, also, I guess, reported seeing a flying UFO around that area while he was in a car with his parents a half an hour before these two boys claimed to have had their encounter. So it's the next day, and the two boys have basically told all the students and their teachers about what happened. And what I find really interesting about this is, I guess the teachers and various school officials just strap themselves with gear, and they're like, all right, we're going to go check this out.
Okay.
And when they get there, they find that 2 solid concrete posts that were near the site where the UFO landed had been pushed over. And it's, I guess, determined that neither of the boys would have been able to push these concrete posts over. And as they get there, they find quote unquote landing traces and a pattern in a sort of ring shape in the soil near these broken posts. And then one of the school teachers even claims to have discovered radioactivity inside of this circle. Now, interestingly, other professors and other researchers and experts would eventually confirm this person's findings. This was the teacher named Susumu Maeda, who I guess specialized in radiology.
So they confirmed the radiation.
They confirmed there was radiation in there.
Okay.
To what extent, I don't know, but I don't think it was particularly dangerous levels of radiation. There just was traces of it, like you could measure it.
Okay.
Now, both the kids are questioned by their family, their parents, the schoolmaster, and a UFO investigator named Masaru Mori, and they maintained a consistent story about what happened. The Civil Aviation Bureau of Transportation Ministry in Japan claimed that this was actually a YS-2 propeller plane that was giving off lights, and it flew only 1,000 meters or so above them, was visible. Like they could have seen it, and they're claiming that the UFO that they saw was just this plane. But no comment on the fanged humanoids, right? So
Yeah. Well, that's just sometimes you just have pilots that have, some sort of metal piece that is attached to the way they fly. I I got nothing. They're fanged humanoids is a thing that I can't explain in here.
yeah.
So
So I guess that was the story that they stuck with. They never abandoned the story, but they wanted, like, I guess, confirmation about what they'd seen. So they were 14 at the time when they saw this. They were 14 at the time in 1982 when they were kind of asked to revisit the state. I think this was on television, maybe, and then another 2 decades later in 2001, they are on a TV show where both of the boys, now men, are taken to different rooms and then they're hypnotized. And during hypnosis, they both recount the exact same story that they had already been saying. And I guess at the time, it's like 2021 when I saw this article, was the date on this article. And they're both like 50-something years old now. And to this day, stick to the same story. So
Huh. Okay.
Who knows? There's some good illustrations of the fanged humanoids of Kofu. That's if you look that up, you'll find them. But like you can find articles like the kids' sort of drawings of the creatures and like a diagram of like what it may have looked like to have the craft land on the ground and all this stuff. So
hmm
you can find all kinds of interesting little tidbits on this one.
How much does hypnotic stuff actually give you personally confidence about anything that people say?
Not a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I think that like there is something to the power of suggestion, but I don't think that I don't think hypnosis is going to get you to necessarily like if you're asking people, did you see fanged aliens, and you're asking them that under hypnosis, I feel like that's not going to get you necessarily a true story, right? Like
Yeah.
I think they already have the image and the idea in their heads. So even if they are susceptible to the like suggestion of hypnosis, I don't think you're going to get, I don't think they're going to like break down and be like, actually, we didn't see anything and it was a plane. Like they're going to stick to their story. I think that hypnosis is not especially effective in these cases of people who already are kind of sticking to their alien story. But maybe they did see a fanged alien and
Yeah.
hypnosis revealed everything. But I personally don't think so.
Look, I don't know what they actually saw. I don't know if they saw aliens or not, and I'm not here to burst anyone's bubble. I just always think like it gets used so much as a like, well, to see what really happened, we put them under hypnosis or hypnotic regression
Yeah.
or any of these things, and I'm always just like, what makes you think that just like God, this is really the reason that I'm in this state. Is reading too much about the satanic panic and how it was caused by like psychiatrists using hypnotic
Yeah.
regression and causing like basically inventing this thing whole cloth. And so like the more I see hypnosis used as a as a silver bullet of truth, the more I'm just like I can't get down with that shit.
Yeah, it's a lot like a like lie detector tests too. You know, like
Yeah.
I just don't think that there's necessarily like none of this is admissible in court, is what I'm saying. So
And that's the true test.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, those are the Kofu fanged humanoids. They're fucking weird vampire guys, and I think they're kind of cool.
Did you ever any of these? Do you ever find like other instances of people seeing similar aliens, or is it just
Well, that's why I got these stories. Is I don't think there's any other like the closest we have here is the comparison to the Pascagoula entity.
Yeah.
But I really don't think that any of these entities are related to any other aliens that have been reported on before.
Gotcha.
And I could be wrong, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, this last one especially is fucking ridiculous, and I've
Cool.
never heard of anything like it. So, Niall, this is the story of the Garson Invaders, a Canadian encounter.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a guy who encountered a Canadian. He was real fucking weird looking.
But it was real polite.
But he was very polite, very polite. But he was also saying some French stuff under his breath, so you know he's a Quebecian and you know
a Quebecer.
a Quebecer, yeah. No, this is an alien known as the Garson Invader. Multiple aliens referred to as the Garson Invaders, and this actually comes from Project Blue Book files.
Oh, cool.
This is a very strange one again, and so this guy. The witness is a young minor who had a very close encounter with three bizarre aliens. And there's whatever. We'll get into it. So the story was made public by a minister and ABC radio host from Buffalo, New York. This is a guy named Elder Charles Beck. So Beck and a local reporter in Canada from a newspaper called the Sudbury Daily Star. This is a guy named Michael Bolton. So it's Bolton and Beck.
No relation.
No relation.
Okay.
And these two investigate and even get these taped interviews with the witness to, and this is like only a week after it happens that they're able to get this stuff. So the eyewitness was a 23-year-old Canadian miner named Ennio Lasarza. So this guy, the way they frame him is that he has like no interest in science fiction. He doesn't really know about the sort of climate of like UFO and sci-fi stuff that's sort of in the air, but especially in North America at this time. Supposedly it was not a thing that he had any interest or knowledge of. And we actually have here some snippets of the interviews plus the Blue Book files. So here's what the Blue Book files say on this guy, which, by the way, the Blue Book files on this particular story are partially redacted.
Oh, fantastic.
Which I think there are quite a few that are like that. But here's what it says. It says, quote, as far as Elder Beck and the reporter could ascertain, Lasarza is regarded in his community, you're going to love this part, as a model citizen with a good record.
Oh, good. So who stood up for him? You know,
he had and has nothing whatever to gain by bringing down on his head the pitiless glare of publicity of an unfavorable kind. He impressed the elder and reporter as being intelligent and level-headed, even though he is naive concerning what the rest of the world knows as saucers. Now, to be fair in this particular, we'll get into it, but to be fair in this particular case, unlike the last two that we brought up, this guy does get some seriously negative responses from the press and the public who are all saying he is out of his mind and just insane. So to be fair, in this particular case, it is a little, it makes some sense that like these people investigating are like, no, he seems to be of sound mind.
Okay.
So on July 2nd, 1954, his story is that at about 5 p.m., he's working as a miner and painter for a nickel mining company in Garson. This is 5 miles out from Sudbury, Ontario, which is where the reporter comes from. He's just working when he suddenly notices that there's something weird happening in the northern sky. And Blue Book notes here, he noted with surprise an object hurtling down from the skies with several times the speed of a jet plane. He thought it would crash, but it slowed down and ended by hovering just above the ground.
Okay.
And here's how he describes it. The saucer, Ennio related, was spherical in shape, about 25 feet in diameter, and had a set of portholes or the equivalent around it. There were rudiments of a landing gear and something like a retractable antenna on top. Which, interestingly enough, not totally dissimilar to the blockheads, huh?
Yeah,
There's some similarities.
We're in the same general area.
Yeah. So he is immediately terrified. He stops and just watches it. But what happens next scares him fucking pants shittingly scary, I guess. So here's what the Blue Book report says. Quote, 3 strange beings emerged from the craft. They were about 13 feet tall, greenish blue in color, and the face was a color combination that Lasarza had never seen before. Which is like hard to imagine what that might look like, but I don't know what that means.
It's color you've never seen before.
Right.
This is a thing that's happened to me before where like if you ever try to think of a fucking color that you've never seen before, it is impossible.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
H.P. Lovecraft was fucking losing his shit about that in that one story where the guy's brain explodes and a whole town.
The color out of space.
Yeah, and like a whole bunch of shit happens that sucks because they can't think of this color that they're seeing, you know?
Yeah.
So, and there's some racism probably. So it goes on to say, he describes their bodies seemed to glow and they had a single eye in the center of what passed for a forehead. The beings had 6 evenly distributed sets of arms and or hairy legs. The hands were equipped with crab-like claws, which opened and closed spasmodically. They also were equipped with a natural twin antenna in the head. Now, the important thing about this twin antenna that he describes is that in some reports, they're referred to as the ears of the creature, and these ears were described as looking like spurs.
Okay.
Now, generally, the creature, these aliens, Lasarza describes as having an insect-like appearance. Now, Lasarza's just fucking frozen in fear watching these things come out, and they start to come towards him. And as Lasarza tries to start to move away, he suddenly feels this psychic like attack. Quote, one of the beings started to come toward Ennio, who turned and ran. However, the being sent a sort of hypnotic stare after Ennio that froze him in his tracks, and then spoke to him in a voice that seemed to address him inside his head.
Okay, so we have telepathic stuff going on here.
Yes. Quote, the being sternly requested or ordered Ennio to perform some task, the nature of which he has stoutly refused to divulge even to officialdom. He was emphatic that he would rather die than do what they asked him to do. So
shit. Okay.
Yeah, I'm guessing this is also whatever it was Meatloaf wasn't willing to do. I think so.
Fuck off.
So this is the big weird thing. I mean, beyond just the aliens being fucked up and insane looking, there is something that they tell him that he needs to do. That this young man is like, I would literally rather die than do that.
Okay.
We still have no idea what they supposedly told him. So at this point, I guess Lasarza is completely overwhelmed and just passes out. And when he wakes up, both the UFO and the aliens are just gone. The only thing that's left behind are these scorch marks on the ground where the craft had landed.
Okay. Scorch marks are pretty common.
Yes.
That makes sense.
And apparently that when the press sort of asked him why he fainted, he said, quote, they fixed me with a hypnotic stare until I fainted. So this thing just looked at him and stared at him until he passed out.
Huh. Okay.
This is, it's another alien thing where like you can become paralyzed or just totally knocked out or frozen psychically, whatever. It's similar to like what I said with the kid in Japan.
Yeah.
Although, maybe it was some sort of alien technology. We don't know. Now, notably, Lasarza at no point, like we do not have any record of him doing any psychological work after this ordeal, no hypnotic regression or anything. Nobody tries to uncover what happened when he during the time that he had been passed out. So we don't know if something happened. Now,
because he's too afraid that he's going to tell them what these aliens told him if he goes under hypnotic regression. They're going to get that secret out.
They're going to...
He'd rather die.
Nobody's supposed to know. And like, can you imagine how lame it would be if we spoiled the whole Meatloaf mystery? Because that's the thing that people talk about. Yeah. I mean, all this time after his death, people are always like, yeah, but what was it that he wouldn't do? Because
he actually got the recipe for Coke, like Coca-Cola. Like it's only known by two people. It's in like a locked fucking thing that only like two people have access to. And but the aliens, hey, they fucking have it.
And the only two people from Earth who know what's in Coke are Meatloaf and Santa Claus. So
they can never be in the same room for fear of the recipe getting entirely destroyed.
Yeah. So I guess Lasarza, after he wakes up, he just immediately reports what happened to his bosses. He goes to the police, and he also goes to representatives of the Royal Canadian Air Force. Now, what's super weird about the Canadian Air Force here is they investigate, but I guess never make any of the news public.
Okay.
And then they hand over their report to the United States Air Force UFO investigative body, that being Project Blue Book. And for some reason, they hand report over to the Air Ministry of London. Strangely enough, the Air Ministry just their copy of the report is just lost, supposedly.
Okay.
Now Lasarza, after reporting all this, becomes just terribly paranoid. And it seems that he is extremely torn over disobeying the aliens and doing whatever horrible thing they ask him to do, or facing whatever it was they would do to him if he didn't act on their command. And we have from Project Blue Book here, quote, he became subsequently so terrified over what they had asked or ordered him to do and the possible consequences of either compliance or refusal that he has seriously considered the authorities to lock him up in jail as a safety measure.
Jesus. Okay.
So Blue Book, the theory that people are kind of remarking on here and sort of maybe stems from what Blue Book was commenting on is that, like, look, this dude clearly isn't aware of the idea of extraterrestrials visiting Earth and interacting with people. He was not aware of how this shit works, and like what a typical case of this looks like. So maybe that makes his story more believable, question mark? I don't really think so.
I guess.
But that's kind of like what people, that's the conclusion that the UFO believers want to draw is like, well, we can believe him because he has no prior, Now, notably, nobody here is saying like, also he has just the worst imagination of all time. Just dog shit imagination.
Just a real, could not even come up with a person that he hasn't seen before. Fucking absolute no imagination.
Nothing going on up there.
Monologue whatsoever.
You ask him to imagine an apple and rotate it in his mind, and he's like, "What's an apple?" This story comes out, and Lasarza is fucking bombarded by reporters, and like I said, they're just not. They're taking the story with a grain of salt and not really trying to confirm facts, just like literally running with the craziness of it all. And they even misquote him as saying that he claimed that the creatures were from Mars. From Blue Book, quote, Ennio was automatically quoted as saying that the spacecraft was from Mars. However, he denies any such statement and made it clear that he could neither know nor guess where they came from. People are, like I said, questioning his sanity over all of this. Quote, there were, of course, the usual hints, especially by officialdom, as to the question of Ennio's sanity. In fact, in some manner, it came about that one or more psychiatrists came from Toronto to quiz Ennio about his experience. Now, even though another important thing here is, even though he knew that this story was going to kind of really fuck up his reputation, he still was very committed to telling the story and getting the truth out there, I guess. Again, from Blue Book, quote, Ennio told the elder that he was fully aware of his situation and that he may be regarded by some as crazy, but he would not and could not retract his story by one iota. He is a great deal more disturbed by what they asked him to do.
Okay.
So it's not clear. It's not clear, totally, to me at least, why he feels compelled to. I guess the idea here is that whatever it is they asked him to do, he feels so pressed by this that, like, getting the truth out there is important, so that there's almost just like the deferring of responsibility, or not even deferring of, just like he's telling the world so that, like, he doesn't. Do you see where I'm kind of like reaching at here?
Yeah, there's this like weird responsibility that comes from this that he's really heavily kind of leaning into.
Yeah.
So the thing that they told him to do has to be like pretty, if not easily doable, pretty attainable, right? Like it has to be within his reach, or else there wouldn't be a reason to be scared of it. So it has to be something that like he could So I'm just trying to figure out like what would terrify you to your core in
Yeah.
such a way, like that. I don't know. This is a really. I've never. This is a reaction to an alien encounter that I've never seen
Yep.
before, where someone is just like
I've been given
has this
terrifying
like
knowledge.
cross to bear.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I haven't really run into this before either. Now I guess
Is this the first alien martyr?
this is like Christ for them. So yeah, I guess that his employers were also kind of not stoked about all this attention. Quote, although the mining officials seem to take a dim view of Ennio's story, this is not abnormal as such matters go. It may be due to the usual official reluctance to face the unusual or unknown, fear of unfavorable publicity for their company, or it may have been a cover-up pose in behalf of secrecy, security, etc. Certainly, if they felt there was nothing to it, they would not have refused to let outside investigators inspect the allegedly scorched landing site. I guess is that's what Blue Book says.
Yeah. Look,
Do you think though that
Blue
people
Book
are like
is not the
knocking on your
source,
door saying we need to investigate? We're from the fucking United States military. We're from the Canadian Air Force. We need to investigate a supposed thing that happened. Are you like you're like no, please don't look? Like they're saying that because they were like yeah, go ahead. That's somehow more reliable. I don't know.
Look, that's a reach, but fuck it. Like we're at the point now where anytime I see like Blue Book cases and stuff, there's such like an ulterior motive to them that I don't know how to process most of the information. So this is weird, yeah, but I don't know what to do with it.
Now check this out. This is pretty strange too.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, Elder Beck, as is his custom, took his tape recorder along and obtained a tape-recorded interview with Ennio. However, right after the talk, Ennio became so disturbed about how the recording might be in violation of certain promises he had to make to the authorities, police, RCAF, etc., that he begged to have the recording wiped out. Elder Beck courteously complied in the boy's presence.
Huh.
So he was it notably is here he's not afraid that the aliens will get the recording or whatever. He's afraid of the authorities, what that's going to look as far as his compliance with what the authorities have asked him to do. So that's pretty strange.
That is strange, yeah.
And it's very the internet kind of is like, oh well, maybe he was threatened into silence, Men in Black style, by government officials. And because of his situation, because he's an immigrant, there is this threat of deportation, I guess, that was maybe looming over him. This is just the guess that people are making.
That would make sense. Like that, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So these tapes are destroyed. Apparently, they were made at one point, but Ennio refused to let them out to the public and had them destroyed. So something he told them was not acceptable to the authorities, I guess.
Okay.
Now, Beck and Bolton go back to the offices of the Sudbury Daily Star to basically record everything that had been told to them fresh from their own minds. On July 11th, 1954, Beck would then broadcast the tapes that they recorded on their radio show. And that's kind of where the story itself ends. But here's where we have one little weird snag at the very end, some theorizing that's been done.
Okay.
So we don't know who actually wrote the Blue Book letter that was kind of covering all of this. Like, we don't know specifically who investigated this and where this information is coming from. We just know it's a Blue Book file. So the question that they ask is what the fuck, generally. From Blue Book, It says, what was it that they wanted Ennio to do for them? Since he can't or won't tell, let us fall back on some educated guesses or intuitive reasoning. As a starting point, why would the space beings land on the premises of a nickel mining company? Why would they be interested in a young man who has access to the nickel mine workings? What would he be in a position to do for them? Now,
oh yeah, okay.
Here is where the person who wrote up these Blue Book files, the text on all this, theorizes that the reason aliens might have an interest in a nickel mine is that nickel has a close association with something called cobalt 60. Now I don't know much about this, but apparently, cobalt 60, there is some sort of way that you can transform nickel into cobalt 60 and create basically a neutron bomb.
Oh, okay.
So
is this real, or is this
I think this is
theory?
real, but caveat. Well, let me just read what it says here in Blue Book. With the above in mind, it is conceivable in terms of space being science at least that the nickel in the nickel mine could be chain reacted into cobalt 60 right in the ground. All it might need is some simple form of triggering fuse, for example, a neutron emitter, to start such a reaction. A spoonful of cobalt 60 is equal to all the radium ever produced or in existence in the world today. This is why the cobalt bomb is giving the world a case of king-size jitters. Now, I guess that this is a thing that was really described by a physicist named Leo Szilard in 1950, and suggested that you could create a weapon that would be basically a doomsday device that would just kill everything on Earth. This was, I guess, at one point researched by the United States Air Force, but I didn't look into this really that much because I feel like there's probably a story here of why cobalt 60 neutron bomb shit, like why the cobalt bomb was abandoned. But supposedly we did look into it. But Blue Book says, quote, would that much of it explode and either trigger off great earthquakes or wipe out the human race with atmospheric contamination? Would this necessarily be a malignant move, or would it be a lesser evil to wipe out the human race to forestall our blowing the planet apart with our atomic experiments? From their viewpoint, this might amount to killing off the pupils to save the school. So the theory that was kind of kicked around at the time was maybe these aliens were trying to get this guy to set up a bomb that would kill everything on Earth. But we don't know.
I mean, that would make sense to be a thing that he would have that reaction to, I guess. Sure.
Now, why didn't it happen?
Why not?
Why didn't it happen?
Yeah.
And I don't know much about the cobalt 60 stuff. I didn't look into it. It could be some pseudoscience-y shit. I don't know, but it's, I guess it's reasonable enough, but I don't actually know how real that is.
Yeah.
So that is the story of the Garson invaders. Thankfully, we're all here. We did not get cobalt bombed into hell.
Yeah, I didn't get destroyed by a copper mine worker who had an encounter with these aliens. All right.
Yeah. But Niall, those are my 3 alien stories. I realized that was a lot, but I thought these were some of the weirdest fucking aliens I could find.
Yeah, definitely. They don't match other shit. Like you're right.
Yeah. And that's my episode. Are you prepared for a big question?
Oh, always.
Excellent. Niall, let's build an alien. If you could pick 3 objects that you can think of here in our reality that you could mash together and build an alien from, what would they be? I feel like a lot of the aliens today are like mashed together shapes and objects,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things, your brain, as someone who studied art for a while, you know that a lot of things are just, you just build them down. You can break them down to their component shapes. That's a thing. So I probably shouldn't start with like this Godzilla figure that's on the front, like, because, we're just starting with Godzilla. That seems like a bit of a cheat. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like kind of cheating. I feel like, okay, look, we're in what some people would, maybe mainly people from a long time ago, would call the future, right? So I think that we should try to make an alien of the future. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with like a big like TV flat screen as part of it.
Okay.
So we're gonna have kind of a baseline of this thing having some sort of ability to project image.
Okay.
Are we going back and forth, or are we both doing our own 3-part?
Oh, I mean, we can go back and forth. I mean, you can go back and forth. I think that this thing needs to have. So, what are we thinking? This is like maybe its head. It's like a projection, flat
Either
screen
head or torso. It depends on if you want to go like Kang, or not Kang, Krang, the Ninja Turtle, not the MCU.
Right. MODOK,
or if you want to go the dude from Saga. You know,
I like a T.
So you can go one of two ways.
I'm honestly like in fiction. I love it when there's a TV for a head. I think that should be its head.
Okay.
Now, one thing that I think would be cool. I think it would be very cool if it had a body like a bunch of grapes. So
okay, so it's kind of like a
the main stem with the branching off bits. That's like sort of its like central body mass, and then it has just a bunch of grape like fruiting bodies that are sort of branching off of its body. So it's got like a thin body, but it's sort of a grape body.
See, my first thought when you said that was thinking about Rayman, how it's like how Rayman is these like disconnected blobs,
Okay.
But if you want to keep the stems on it, that's perfectly fine. Like I can see it being like kind of a tendril going through the back that's attached to all these different little balls. So this right now we've got the makings of a real fucking weirdo here. Interesting. So we got that.
So where do you want? So like, does this thing have limbs, or does it have like a like? I'm gonna let you decide how this thing finishes.
So we now have a body and a head. I have to figure out locomotion and which way.
What is this? We're playing a game here. What is this called? Exquisite Corpse or whatever?
Yeah, I think we're kind of exquisite corpsing here with some aliens. So I think what I want to do here is I don't want to just have like regular legs. Right. I think that's a little overdone in aliens. I think too many aliens have legs. I'll say it. It's a hot take. More aliens should find other ways of moving around. You should say it. So what I'm going to go with here is I think that I'm going to I think there is going to be some like flotation to it. I think it's going to be kind of floating a little bit. I like the idea of this. Feels like something that should be able to silently coast along about a foot off the ground.
Okay.
But I think it needs some way of maneuvering itself. So we got to give it some sort of like directionality option. And so I think I'm going to add what's a good shape of things in my room here. Let's go ahead and add some kind of like paddle-like features in the shape of like I'm sitting here. This is coming from the fact that I currently have 3 wireless mice sitting on my desk right now, and they're all kind of in that shape of like ergonomic.
Yeah.
Like
I was thinking paddles too. Like we're simpatico here.
So kind of the shape of like a Logitech wireless mouse, let's say. Some paddles that act as kind of like that give it the ability to grasp at things, but also direct itself in this like hovering nature.
Okay, and maybe when it grasps at things, it makes a funny little clicking noise.
Yeah, sure, we can go with that.
And you can eat its body like grapes, and it'll grow it back.
any flavor of grape it's kind of like it honestly maybe it could even be more like boba, so you get like some little like exploding fruit flavored juice, like I feel like that's kind of fun.
I would eat this alien, and while you're munching on its fruiting body, you can watch the big game. So this guy's awesome. Yeah. He's just floating around.
Yeah, this guy's great.
You are gonna have to follow him around as he floats in various directions if you want to continue eating the fruit and watching the big game. Though that is gonna be a task.
That is true.
But cool. What do we fucking call this guy? I'm thinking Glump.
Shit. Yeah, I'll go with that. I had nothing, so I'll go ahead and take whatever you can give me.
So that's Glump. I think
the only thing that was coming to mind was the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster, which I don't know why the fuck that came into my brain, but that's already trademarked by Douglas Adams. Yeah. So
rest in peace.
I can't really take that one. So.
Well, Niall, with Glump, that brings us to some business.
Yeah. So if you want to find more of the show, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're almost certainly there.
Go to twitch.tv/itgetsweird. Watch some video games, or don't. I don't fucking care. Email us at
Real intense, all right.
email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Now, what I do care about is if you email us. I do kind of care about the Twitch thing, actually. I take that back. It would be nice if people came and we got a nice community that comes and watches us on weekends when we stream. So check it out. But email us, itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to get an Exquisite Corpse game going with the community. And maybe we can do that through email. So maybe somebody send a piece in. Somebody send us a head, somebody send us a torso, somebody send us limbs or something equivalent to limbs, and we'll see if we can mash that shit together, really make a fucked up looking guy. And then we'll eat the emails as established by whatever episode we established that in. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and we have a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get access to It Gets Weird TV, that comes out every other week on Thursdays. We're currently watching the X-Files, discussing that and having fun with it. Season 1, it's really good stuff so far. At the $5 tier, you get access to It Gets Weird TV plus a show in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. So you're getting bonus content every single week. Sometimes it's an episode by me. Sometimes it's an episode by Niall. Sometimes we watch a movie. And in incredibly rare occasions, it's an episode by Garrett. I got to talk to that bad boy sometime here about that. And whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. And you get access to the Discord where we're all hanging out talking about fucked up aliens. So please donate if you can. We also have a $1 tier that's just a tip. You don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, like your show, like what you do. Here's $1 a month. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.